We've heard a lot about big data and artificial intelligence, and our next speaker, Ollie Fielding, who is the head of product at Pulse Data, a company here that's working in this with Rogosin, among others. Very importantly, because if we're going to improve outcomes at lower cost, it would seem that we need to be able to better predict who's going to get into trouble and intervene with them in a timely and appropriate fashion. So, Ollie, we welcome you to tell us about AI and where it's going. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. All right, this is the title of my talk, Big Data AI Risk Stratification for More Timely and Effective Management of Kidney Disease. It's a very short title, and it's an even shorter subject matter, so bear with me. AI is everywhere, and right now, particularly in healthcare, these are just some of the different places that you find AI in healthcare, ops and hospital management, research, imaging, and so on, and we're in the risk stratification business. But I thought I'd just pause for a minute and start with, what is AI and machine learning? Well, really, it's just about labeling things and attaching that label to a probability. So here's an example: kidney, not kidney. But we're only mostly sure about that. So let's think about this. If we were to go back and we were to predict which one of these kids is going to become a great all-time athlete, what do we know about this kid? Well, one of them is Serena Williams. The other one is me. Right? I'm trying my best to look athletic, and this is the best I can do, right? But we need to know something more than that, right? We need to teach the machine how to label properly. Well, Serena Williams has 23 Grand Slam single titles. She has 14 doubles titles. She's won 4 Olympic gold medals, and she has 803 career victories, although she did lose a couple of days ago, but we'll ignore that. I once won an under-10s decathlon championship. Clearly, thank you. Clearly, Serena has the better shot. We can teach the model that Serena is probably going to turn out to be the better athlete than me. So it's all about how good your label is going to be, right? If we're talking about kidney disease, is a diagnosis code for CKD good enough? Is an eGFR value good enough? Do we need to have an image of the kidney to be able to predict? Well, we're in the AI world, so we actually need something that looks like that. That is a pictorial diagram of the nodal creation of how we classify CKD on a computer. Each one of those red dots represents a calculation that we do in order to get to a definition of CKD. And we want to use that prediction, that phenotyping of CKD, and we want to use it to make meaningful actions for patients. Because why create a risk score at all unless you're going to do something for patients? So we're going to look at Margaret. Margaret is a real patient, but we've changed her name. She is a 59-year-old African-American female. She has anemia, she has high cholesterol, she has hypothyroidism. Her current eGFR is 12.5, and she has no recent proteinuria available to us. And as we heard earlier, not all patients with a GFR of around 12 are going to progress to need dialysis. We need to understand, is Margaret going to be one of the ones who is or is not going to progress? And there are so many more just like her. So in order for us to predict whether Margaret will move forward or not, we need time and trend. So we need to take all the information we know about Margaret, and we need to bring it together. So let's look at that. We need lots of data to give us the context we need. We need demographics data. We need diagnosis and procedure data. We need medications. We need labs. We need the social determinants of health. If she has a device that she uses to track her blood pressure at her home, we need that data. And we bring it all together, and we create an awesome risk prediction for Margaret to move forward. But really, we take those features, and we turn them into combinations of features. How do those things interact? And that interaction gives us the best shot we have of reaching a prediction. And we need to match our specific prediction with a specific outcome. Like, what is the outcome going to be when I say that there's a risk for Margaret? And we do that with the PEAK program. So the PEAK program is a phenomenal multidisciplinary care team that lives inside Rogerson, focusing on the transition to renal replacement therapy. And so when we come up with a risk goal, really what we're trying to do is push patients into that PEAK program so that the care providers within it can do the best job of delaying or avoiding renal replacement therapy. This is the model that we built, which is focused on, we're looking at trying to predict a patient's eGFR will decline to less than 10 in the next 185 days, or roughly 6 months. We chose that because that would indicate the right moment for renal replacement therapy. If we looked across a 3-year period, we found 214 cases where a patient would decline to an eGFR of less than 10 in that period. The number of patients who received fistulas and grafts and other interventions prior to that eGFR declining to less than 10 was 17. If you used our algorithm to identify which patients were the ones that were going to progress, you got 181 of them. It's a clear sign that we can do a lot to predict the outcomes that are going to happen in the future and make sure patients get the care they need ahead of time. I won't go too much into detail about the models, but you can sort of see some of the performance statistics that we bring together to analyze whether the model is going to be successful or not. And this is the kind of end result, the trend lines that we built looking at information over time. So we take our highest risk threshold, the red line coming down. You talk about 100% of the population are healthy at the start and how many are at the end. So within 6 months, 75% of the population's eGFR has declined to less than 10. Within a year, we're over 90%. Within 2 years, we're pretty much at 100% of the people that we said were in the highest risk group were going to have an eGFR of less than 10. That's our opportunity to do something for those patients. And we need to map that to clinical care. We need to select those risk thresholds and actually map them directly into a clinical care workflow that's going to make a difference for the patient, get them the care they need ahead of time. And so this is what happens. We've got like high risk, imminent renal failure, a medium kind of risk, and then a low risk. But really, these are all risky patients, and we're all deciding the best benefits that they can get. And now everybody, not just Margaret, gets their own personal risk score and allows us to determine the right level of care for that individual. And this is us putting that workflow into clinical practice. So we actually send out an alert, an email to the nephrologist to alert them to a high-risk patient, and then depending on the appointment scheduling, we're able to map that patient right into the clinical care workflow. And these are the amazing results. So PEAK is getting tremendous results. If you look at the US RDS average, only 20% of the patients are getting fistulas or other interventions in place beforehand. The PEAK program's over 60%. It's making a difference. It's preparing patients. So what's the conclusion of all this? Well, PEAK works. It's making a difference for patients. We can see that in the data. But really, machine learning is one thing. It's very important. It is part of the future. But it needs to be partnered with a customized care delivery system and some real-world evidence. And then, and only then, do we get more human care. Thank you.